Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is another Everton managerial update, another day, another episode of the Everton sitcom is well and truly underway, and we have got more management news to discuss today. Reports stating that the Everton managerial search is now down to just 3 candidates. They are Frank Lampard, Duncan Ferguson and Vítor Pereira. Apparently Everton looking to make an appointment before the weekend. It could be as early as tomorrow. And also reports stating that Everton look to re-interview the candidates once again tomorrow for some reason or another. I'm not really too sure why they need re-interviewing, especially the likes of Frank Lampard, who it was reported has had an interview earlier today. Why he needs another interview tomorrow is beyond me, really. Again, it screams of the lack of organisation and the lack of the board having any real idea as to what they want or who they want. Is the fact that, you know, a couple of these names have had multiple interviews now, and we're still no closer to finding out who will be the new Everton manager. So let's get into the latest, because as I said, a little bit like yesterday, there has been quite a significant, couple of updates since yesterday. Not quite as significant as one of the candidates going on Sky Sports and having a little bit of a chat, but we have had a fair bit of news over the last 24 hours or so that is definitely worth sitting down and talking about. So the latest comes from Jason Burt of The Telegraph, and he has stated that Everton's managerial shortlist is down to 3 names: Frank Lampard, Duncan Ferguson and Vítor Pereira. A decision will be made very soon. The Telegraph also stated, that Everton are set to appoint their new manager within the next 24 hours. Frank Lampard has been interviewed twice. Vítor Pereira is being considered and was set to be appointed earlier in the week before a U-turn by Farhad Moshiri due to fan protest. So Farhad Moshiri U-turned on appointing Vítor Pereira imminently. However, still considering Vítor Pereira as an appointment. So if he's going to consider him and he's going to appoint him anyway, then why not just appoint him early on in the week? It screams a little bit to me like the owner is sort of saying, I still want this guy as the manager, but maybe I'll just give it an extra couple of days for things to quieten down. And if that's the case, then that doesn't make much sense to me. David Ornstein said that Everton will do the latest set of interviews tomorrow, with Farhad Moshiri coming to the UK to oversee. Lampard and Pereira are the leading candidates. Other names are in contention. An appointment will ideally be made before the transfer window shuts. I hope so, because it shuts on Monday, and it would be an absolute disaster if the transfer window was allowed to shut without a manager and ultimately without a centre midfielder in at the club, because that is something we are in absolute desperate need of, and we all know that. Let's be honest, that's no secret whatsoever. Phil Kirkbride of The Echo stated earlier on in the day that Everton are pushing to make a decision on the club's new manager by tomorrow, as Frank Lampard holds further talks. Everton are hoping to sign a new midfielder before Monday night's transfer deadline. Pardon me. Obviously, we had it confirmed even earlier in the day that young forward Lewis Dobbin has signed a new 3.5-year deal with the football club until June 2025, which is obviously massively positive news. Sammy Mockbell and Dominic King both reported that Everton will hold further talks with Frank Lampard as the club aim to make an appointment by the weekend, with the transfer window closing on Monday. The Telegraph also reported that Frank Lampard is set for the second Everton interview in the latest twist to the club's managerial search. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that is about the latest that we are up to with the managerial situation. Obviously, we had all of the protests yesterday, which we spoke about on yesterday's live stream. And let me just double check and make sure I haven't missed anything. We spoke yesterday about Sammy Mockbell's report saying that Vítor Pereira's Sky interview had put Everton off. Well, clearly not put Everton off that much, because he still is one of the 3 candidates that is supposedly in the running for the Everton job. So at the moment, it very much seems like certainly Frank Lampard and Vítor Pereira are the leading candidates. Duncan Ferguson's name's been thrown in there, which is a little bit surprising. Not surprising, but surprising at the same time. Not surprising because obviously he is, currently at the club. He oversaw the the game against Aston Villa last week, and it would make perfect sense for the club to interview Duncan Ferguson and for him to be a candidate for the job. That was almost sort of a guarantee, if you like. However, it does surprise me a little bit because we haven't really heard anything about Duncan Ferguson. You know, we come out last week after the Villa game and even before the Villa game and said, you know, that the club need to make the right appointment and bring in the right man for the job, and we need the best manager to take us forward and this, that and the other. And that's absolutely spot on. But, you know, and I understand, obviously, Duncan wants the job, or certainly I would like to think he wants the job. And, you know, as I said, it's not a surprise that he's being considered or he's being interviewed, but we haven't really heard much in the media about Duncan Ferguson. And, you know, a lot of the reports we've spoken about on these live streams over the last 3-4 days or so, Duncan's name has very rarely come up, if it's all. Obviously, you've had Vítor Pereira, you've had Nico Kovac, you've had Rudy Garcia, you've had Frank Lampard, but Duncan, you know, you've had Wayne Rooney, but Duncan's name has been very much sort of, you know, again, not really mentioned. Now, that might be because the media don't feel a need to mention him because he's at the club, and maybe the media think that it's a sort of, you know, it's obvious that he'll be interviewed, it's obvious that he'll be in contention to get the job, but it's not obvious, is it? Because, you know, for all Evertonians, no, Duncan might have turned around and said he doesn't want it, or the club might have turned around quite apt to Duncan and said, no, we're not going to interview you. So the fact that we're sitting here now and we're talking about 3 leading candidates, and one of them being Duncan Ferguson, who we haven't really spoke about or haven't really heard an awful lot about over the last couple of days, that is a little bit mad to me. That almost makes me sort of think, okay, well, you know, Duncan's still in the hat. I read that earlier on today and I thought, okay, so Dunk's still in with an opportunity. But as I said, it seems like, you know, other than Dunk, the 2 leading candidates at the moment very much are Frank Lampard and Vítor Pereira. Both are not ideal, really, if we're being perfectly honest. I know a lot of people are now well aboard the Frank Lampard saying, and I know a lot of people are, you know, are certainly more than happy with Frank Lampard coming in. I think a lot of that is down to the fact that we're being faced with one of 2 options. You know, obviously Dunk's name's popped up today, which we've just spoken about, but for the majority of you know, the last couple of days or so, it's very much been one of 2 options. It's either Vítor Pereira or it's Frank Lampard, and that has led to a lot of Evertonians just to sort of say, just give it to Frank Lampard. I think Frank Lampard is a decent manager. There's definitely pros and cons to Frank Lampard. I don't think he's as great as some people maybe seem to think he is. He spent an awful lot of money at Derby and has put them ultimately in the situation, or contributed. The money he spent, not Frank himself, but the money Frank Lampard spent at Derby has contributed to the situation that they're in now, that Wayne Rooney is having to mop up at the moment. He did buy a couple of players that I'm led to believe aren't particularly great. Don't get me wrong, he brought through a couple of young players. He brought the likes of Mason Mount through and Tammy Abraham, and that's a big positive, was his ability to bring through the youth and, you know, ultimately use the likes of Tammy Abraham, Mason Mount when he was at Derby, Reece James, of course, you know, all come through the Chelsea side, Callum Hudson-Odoi, because of Frank Lampard, and that was the reason they got their big, you know, break in the first team, and they're all sort of first team players now, certainly most of them. So, you know, again, I suppose it would be his willingness to introduce youth into the first team is something that I think will go down well with Evertonians, especially on a day that, you know, young Lewis Dobbin has just signed a new contract, and we know that he is eager to get more and more game time. Again, his first season at Chelsea was great. It really, really was great. You know, he done really well with what he had. And again, that sounds stupid to say. I'm not going to sit here and say he done really well with limited resources, because he didn't have limited resources, did he? Let's be honest. I mean, he had, you know, some of the best young players in the world. He still had a very good Chelsea squad full of experienced players. Okay, they weren't allowed to spend any money, but it's not like Everton's limited resources. Everton's academy is nowhere near as good as Chelsea's was. But, you know, considering that he had to implement some of those young players and he had to put his arm around them and manage them really well, he done well there, and he showed that he could, you know, he can integrate youth, and he can manage in a league that, again, usually demands spending big money to be at the top, and he was in and around the top, you know, without really spending. And in the season that he got sacked, he did spend a lot of money. I think he spent 350 million or something like that in the summer. And obviously he was sacked midway through the season because they were 8th, 9th, something like that. And they, you know, actually they brought in Thomas Tuchel and then went on to win the Champions League. So as I said, there's certainly positives with Frank Lampard. I'd be lying if I was to sit here and say that I think he'd be the best manager in the world, and I'm absolutely over the moon with him. I just think that a lot of this sort of feeling towards Lampard is coming because of the extreme sort of anxiety we've all got over Vítor Pereira being appointed. And I suppose I understand it. I really, really do understand it. And, you know, I appreciate that Vítor Pereira hasn't got the best track record. You know, never managed in England before, never managed in the Premier League, and the only one real bit of experience he's got managing a side that were in a similar situation to Everton, he was relegated, although, as he will tell you, that was nothing to do with him. 1860 Munich had no money, and that was the reason why they went down. Nothing to do with the fact that he lost, you know, 11 out of the 20 games that he was in charge for. It was all down to the fact that they had no money. Obviously, he's still very much in the club's ideas, Vítor Pereira. You know, the interview on Sky yesterday doesn't seem to have made much of a difference to the club's decision-making, as does the protests of fans, really. And people can say all they like, oh, but Farhad Moshiri's done a U-turn, or oh, but he hasn't employed them yet. But if he's going to if the club are going to employ Vítor Pereira anyway, then the protests and the Sky interview have merely just, you know, delayed the process, haven't they, really? It's not that the club have been put off or the club have maybe looked elsewhere. It's just that they've thought, well, we'll just give this an extra couple of days so things calm down. You know, again, Pereira is a manager that would be a monumental risk. And as I said yesterday, and I really, really do feel like this, I feel like this boils down to who is the least risky. Not necessarily who is the most amazing manager or who are we going to be dead over the moon with. It's who is the least risky. And Frank Lampard, out the two, is the least risk because he's managed in the Premier League before. And also, the fans have got this pre-existing want for Frank Lampard now. There's a lot of support for Frank. A lot of Blues want him, at the club. Whereas Vítor Pereira, a lot of Blues don't want him at the club. And again, I don't necessarily think that particularly falls down to Vítor Pereira personally, or even his managerial career to an extent. I just think it falls down to the fact that, you know, he just, because he's never managed in this country before, and you know, his CV, although he'll tell you speaks for itself, doesn't really speak for itself. You know, and certainly the Sky interview was a massive put off because it come across to me as, you know, how is this being allowed to happen? And some people commented on the video we done yesterday saying, I actually don't think the interview was too bad. And largely what he was saying in the interview and a large part of the content of the interview, you know, wasn't bad. He was saying what, you know, he wants Everton to be successful and he wants to bring that atmosphere back to Goodison. He did say a couple of things that got under my skin. Things like, my CV speaks for itself. Well, just because you won a league in Portugal doesn't mean that you all of a sudden qualified to manage in the Premier League. You know, things like the Jagielka Bain situation, which he mentioned twice, almost made me feel like it had been written down for him. The relegation thing really got to me. You know, again, instead of owning that and saying, well, yeah, you know, we got relegated at 1860 Munich. It wasn't a great season. It wasn't a great time. You know, we were against it with money-wise, but, you know, it wasn't great for us. And you know, I've learned a lot from them and I won't make those mistakes. He almost sort of just come out and dismissed it and almost sort of took no responsibility. It was like, no, that wasn't my fault. No, they had no money. They went down because of financial struggles, nothing to do with me. And it's a bit like, well, it was to do with you because you were the first team manager at the time that ultimately saw them relegated. Yes, I'm not debating there was financial struggles or there was financial implications or problems, but you ultimately were the manager when they went down. So to take no responsibility, almost it keeps making me think, ticking over my head. Are we going to get to a point where we're relegated and Pereira turns around and goes, nothing to do with me, they couldn't spend anything last summer, they only spent 1.7 million in the summer, so that was the reason they went down. It's just an excuse that made me sort of think, that's not really what I want to hear. But as I said, the other things that he said were sort of the usual stuff you would expect to hear a manager who's just been given a job say. Things that you would expect to hear Vítor Pereira talk about. You know, if you'd have said to me or Wemi or Jem or Hernandez or Semi or anybody watching live, we will get in the live comments, by the way. If you are watching live, please hit that like button. It only takes a second. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe. That would mean a massive amount to me. If you'd have said to, let's say, I don't know, anyone in the comments or me, let's say I woke up yesterday at 3 o'clock or something, say I had a late night before and I woke up at 3 o'clock and you didn't tell me anything. I didn't go on Twitter, didn't go on YouTube, I didn't go on social media, didn't go on anything, and you said to me, right, Cam, I'm not going to play you the question that Vítor Pereira is being asked, but I'm going to play you every one of his answers. I'd say he's got the job, hasn't he? Because he's talking about he's talking about what he wants to bring to Everton, the type of atmosphere he wants to bring. He's got the job. It's been announced. So when you sort of sit there and think it hadn't been announced and he hadn't even been offered the job yet, and he's still a candidate at the moment, and it's still very much in the interview process, it baffles me. And it's not really the content of what it was saying. It was the fact that this has been allowed to happen. You know, an Everton managerial candidate has been allowed to go on national television and air the dirty laundry about the process and what he wants to bring. I mean, is that not only fair then that Dunk phones up Sky Sports and does the same? And we may as well just do our fucking interview process via Sky Sports. It just, again, it's baffling now that even was allowed to happen, or that did happen. And it's even more baffling that if the club didn't know about that, which leads me to think that certain people within the club did know about that, Farhad Mashiri, Kia Jorabshian, then why, if the club didn't know about that and they were shocked and they weren't happy, then surely they'd just go, yeah, you've absolutely, you know, you've nailed your own coffin there. Lucky, mate, we're going to go, you know, for Frank or someone instead. But as I said, I firmly do believe that Vítor Pereira is still within a chance. In fact, if you were to ask me who I'd put my money on now, and again, this is coming from no knowledge from within the club, I've got no in the knows, I don't know anything more than anybody else knows, but if you were to ask me hand on heart, who my heart is telling me will be the next Everton manager, I just think it'd be Vítor Pereira. I do. I think there's admirers of Frank Lampard, including the majority of the fan base, and I also probably think that there's people on the board that admire Frank Lampard and people within the club that would want him. But I think the most important people that count, i.e. Farhad Mashiri and his mate Kia Jorabshian, and also a little bit of Bill Kenwright. Let's not forget, you know, Vítor Pereira spoke in his first sentence about his relationship with Bill Kenwright and the fact that he was approached by Bill Kenwright. So if you've got Bill, Farhad and Kia wanting Kia Jorabshian, and you've got, let's say, Denise Barrett-Baxendale who wants Frank Lampard, because that was reported yesterday, and the fans that want Frank Lampard, who's more likely to get their own way? What does history tell you? So, hand on heart, I think I'll be sitting here tomorrow talking about Vítor Pereira as the new Everton manager. I think somebody has set him up for the interview with Sky, thinking that it would go brilliantly because he talked passionately about the club and the fans all get on the back of it. It went the opposite way, and I think the club have now just gone, right, settle it down, put to the media that there's still other candidates involved, and then, you know, we'll announce them in a couple of days when everything's quieting down a little bit. I do. That's hand on heart how I feel. I could be well wide of the mark. I could be massively wrong. I really could. It could be Lampard tomorrow, and I could be sitting here saying I was drastically wrong. It could be Dunk. As I said, it's interesting that all of a sudden now Dunk's the third name. You know, I was getting ready to do this live stream, you know, set it up earlier on, and the title was very much going to be two-horse race between Pereira and Lampard, and then all of a sudden Duncan Ferguson's name's brought in there by very reliable sources, and you think, well, if Dunk's been in contention from the start, then why hasn't he been mentioned in articles? You know, he's been mentioned in a couple, but why hasn't he really been mentioned in articles and in rumours and stuff like that? And if Dunk is only just being mentioned now, then who at the club is pushing that? Who has decided we'll give Duncan an interview? Because if Mashiri is so adamant on bringing Vítor Pereira to the football club, which he may be or he may not be, and he wants to, you know, interview Frank Lampard so he can be seen as interviewing multiple candidates, why would he want to interview Duncan unless there's something there? Is it so Duncan go away and say, oh yeah, I had an interview, because the club are worried about Dunk saying, oh no, I wasn't even interviewed, and then the fans getting on the back of that? I don't know. But ultimately, as I said, as it stands at the moment, pardon me, I've just been in the sauna, so my throat is extremely dry. As it stands at this very current moment, as I said, the situation is, bear with me 2 seconds, the situation is that according to Jay Burt of The Telegraph, Everton manager shortlist is down to 3 names: Frank Lampard, Duncan Ferguson and Vítor Pereira. A decision will be made soon. The Telegraph also reporting that Everton are set to appoint their new manager within the next 24 hours. Lampard has been interviewed twice, Pereira is being considered and was set to be appointed earlier this week before a U-turn by Farhad Mashiri due to fan protests. Everton will do the latest set of interviews tomorrow, with Farhad Mashiri coming to the UK to oversee. Lampard and Pereira are the leading candidates. Other names in contention. So if Dunk's one, who is the plural? Who's the other name? Is it Rooney? Is it somebody completely left field who we haven't heard about? And then as I said, where else was there was another statement as well. Ekrem Connor, who was actually a Turkish journalist, tweeted out that Frank Lampard is to become the new Everton manager. So who knows? I know El Bobble, Phenomenal says El Bobble said it's Lampard. He did say that Everton were in advanced talks with Lampard. But where is it? David Maddock, who has been very, very close to this situation. We've spoke about David Maddock and his tweets and his information a number of times over the last couple of days or so. More recently, David Maddock said earlier on today, Friday, tomorrow, is D-Day for Everton in search for the new manager. They will re-interview all candidates on the shortlist and then make a decision on the new boss. Crucially, Pereira will speak again despite fan backlash. Lampard still a contender. Big Dunk will be interviewed and Rooney declines beauty pageant. Whatever that means, I'm not too sure what that means. But again, David Maddock coming out there and very much echoing what Jay Burt of the Telegraph had to say in regards to the three names. Now, what's really interesting and worrying about that is that Everton will re-interview all of the candidates. Well, why? If we've interviewed Lampard twice and we've interviewed Pereira multiple times, because he literally said himself yesterday he's had multiple conversations with multiple different people, and I can only assume Dunk has had at least a couple of conversations, certainly at least one obviously about the Aston Villa game, then why are we now interviewing them all again? Is it like one final hurrah? And if Frank Lampard's had an interview over the last few days or so, what else is he going to say? He's going to go into the interview and what are they going to do? Ask him the same questions and he's going to say the same answers, and then they're going to go away and go, oh, we'll interview them all again on Saturday actually because we haven't come to a decision yet. I don't get it. I don't get why after multiple rounds of interviews they have to be interviewed again. I mean, Vítor Pereira literally done an interview on Sky yesterday, which was basically a job interview. Hernandez says, sounds like they can't make a decision or there's a clear power struggle happening right now. I think it's both. I think there's various members on the board that want different things, and I think they can't make a decision. And then I think that Moshiri, to maybe please his fellow board members and please the fans, is willing to speak with and interview everybody again. But the reality of the situation is, it doesn't really fucking matter if he's just going to say, we're giving it to Vítor Pereira anyway. If Dunk's going to go into that interview tomorrow and say everything's spot on and have an amazing interview and talk so passionately and well about the club and sell himself brilliantly and make everyone on that board go, he's the right man for the job, but Moshiri's going to be in there, throwing paper planes across the room thinking, I'm not even listening because I know who I'm giving it to, then what the fuck's the point? It's a waste of everybody's time. And more crucially, as I've said before, and I'll say it again, time is ticking. It's Friday tomorrow. Deadline day is on Monday. We've had an update on injuries today. Abdoulaye Doucouré set to be out for a number of weeks, as is Fabian Delph. Our midfield is Alan, Andre Gomez, Jean-Philippe Gbamin, sorry, I've got an ulcer, and Tyler Onyango. The most mobile and quickest out of those players is an 18-year-old lad with very little Premier League experience. The others are not very quick and on their own in the midfield by themselves aren't good enough, aren't suited to the Premier League. Allen and Gomez as a partnership is the worst partnership you will see in the Premier League because there's not enough athleticism, there's not enough pace there, they're not suited to this league together. You put Doucouré in there, fine, but Doucouré isn't going to be there for weeks now. So it is absolutely imperative that we go out and bring in a centre midfielder before the window shuts. And if we're still fucking about with interviews and who are we going to give it to, and let's talk about let's do another interview with the people. Just had an update from Sky Sports literally now. Everton to hold talks on Friday with Vítor Pereira, Frank Lampard, and Duncan Ferguson, the final three candidates for the vacant manager's role. And what happens if they don't come to a decision tomorrow? Are they going to talk to them again on Saturday? And as I said, deep in my heart, history will tell me that if Farhad Moshiri has made his mind up, it doesn't really matter whether there's another round of interviews to appease the rest of the board or to appease us fans. It doesn't really matter whether, Dunk speaks passionately or Lampard comes in and says he's going to win it. It doesn't really matter. And Moshiri mightn't have made his mind up. And maybe that's the problem. The club can't make their mind up on who they want. But I don't know. I've just got this feeling, this gut feeling in my heart, in my stomach that The decision has already been decided by the owner. It's just about him trying to sell that decision to the board and then ultimately sell it to the fans. Hence Vítor Pereira going on Sky, which I honestly think was set up by either Managerial himself or Kia Jorabshian. I do. I really, really do. And if it isn't, put it this way, if it isn't Vítor Pereira, I will be extremely surprised. And I don't know anything more than anybody else knows, but I will be extremely surprised because I've just got this feeling that that's who the owner and his little mate wants. And we all know what the mate wants, the mate gets. So if they go against what the mate wants, then I'll be surprised, if I'm honest with you. I will. But ultimately, it's a chance for Lampard and Dunk to go out tomorrow. Pardon me, almost give the board or the owner no choice. And, you know, you look at it and think, well, if Vítor Pereira is still in contention after fan protests, which, you know, again, coming out and saying, oh, Managerial's done a U-turn. Well, he hasn't done a U-turn, as he's done a U-turn from effectively announcing the fella, which means that he clearly had won the race to become the next manager, to him now just being a candidate again. It's not a U-turn, is it? A U-turn to say, I'm not even going to consider him anymore. He's still getting interviewed. He's still in consideration, so there's no U-turn. The fact that he took a U-turn from an imminent announcement means that the decision has already been made, really, hasn't it? Because if the fans didn't protest, then Vítor Pereira would probably be the Everton manager by now. The interview, as I said, in Sky, for me, at Sky, reeks of somebody at the football club saying, go out there and do an interview, go and try and sell, you know, what you can bring to the club, how good of a manager you are, what you bring as a manager, you know, how well you know the club, go and sell that to the fans, and it didn't work, and now, somebody's sitting there going, oh, fucking hell, that didn't work, we expected that to work. You know, again, we haven't, you know, there's been no rumours about, you know, Frank Lampard, you know, being close to being given the job. He's just a candidate at the moment. So we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. But as I said before, first and foremost, we need a centre midfielder. We need a manager. We need a director of football. We need a structure. We need a new board. We need a lot of things at Everton. But if we want to stay in the Premier League past this season, we need a centre midfielder and preferably a centre half. But given the injuries, we definitely need a centre midfielder. I can't stress that enough. I can't stress the importance of bringing in another centre midfielder before Monday, because if we don't, then, as I said, you know, I've said a couple of times, sorry about this, I'm just going to shine a light on the mic because it looked like it was coming loose. I've said it multiple times, if we don't bring in a centre midfielder before Monday, then you could bring in Pep Guardiola, you could bring in anybody, and I don't see them getting far with this Everton team without us bringing in another midfielder. I really don't. So, yeah, that seems to be it. Latest from Jay Bate of The Telegraph, and more recently, about 2 minutes ago, Sky Sports, that Everton are set to hold interviews with Vítor Pereira, Frank Lampard and Duncan Ferguson tomorrow regarding the vacant Everton managerial post. And a decision could be made as early as tomorrow. I would assume that a decision will be made as soon as those interviews are done. And as I said, I just can't look past it being Pereira. I might be wrong. And tomorrow might be the decider. Managerial might be going into tomorrow thinking I'm giving it to Vítor. And then, you know, Dunk might blow him away. Or, you know, Frank Lampard might blow him away. Or I could be completely disrespecting Farhad Managerial. He might be sitting there thinking, I haven't made my decision. And he mightn't have made his decision. But I just feel like there's one name that he sort of wants more than any, and it's just a case of trying to, you know, back that decision himself. But maybe I'm wildly wide of the mark. I don't know. I don't know, but that's just a gut feeling that I've got. But we'll know tomorrow, won't we? We'll know tomorrow by who is the new Everton manager. You know, and again, when rumours are coming out saying Everton are in talks with Frank Lampard, in advanced talks, is that who's in advanced talks with Frank Lampard? It's Farhad Managerial. Because that would make me think, right, okay, Frank's going to be the new manager. Is it Denise Barrett-Baxendale? Is it Bill Kenwright? And Farhad Managerial doesn't really want Frank Lampard, and he's got the final decision anyway because he owns the club. Who is in talks with Frank Lampard? Who at the club wants Frank Lampard? Ultimately, who does Farhad Managerial want? Because that's going to be it, isn't it? Whoever is the new Everton manager is whoever Farhad Managerial wanted. And we know, pardon me, Farhad Managerial's opinions are tainted by the voice and opinion of a certain fella who's named after the car brand. So, well, we'll wait and see anyway. We'll wait and see. But as I said, for me, and I've said it a couple of times over the last couple of days, a centre midfielder is imperative. We just need a centre midfielder. We do. Semi says Cam is made up that it's Pereira. Oh dear, I've never once said I'm made up it's Pereira. I'm not made up it's Pereira. In fact, out of the three names, I would rather Pereira will be the last in the list, if I'm being honest with you. Again, his only experience in this type of situation. He got down and then blamed something else for that. So Pereira would be a less of a risk than Lampard. I'm not jumping up on that Lampard's amazing, he's going to save us, because I'm not confident that Lampard will, but he's a better option than Pereira, and I think Duncan Ferguson's a better option than the pair of them as well. So we'll wait and see. I just think it'll be Pereira. I do. I'd rather have Duncan over both of them, but if it's down to Lampard or Pereira, I'd rather have Lampard. But doesn't matter what I want, does it? It clearly doesn't matter that much what the fans want, because Pereira wouldn't even be in the conversation if it did. Because the fans have voiced their opinion more than enough over this matter over the last couple of days or so. You know, the fella went on Sky himself. That should have been a massive red flag for the club, but it clearly wasn't. Yeah, but as I said, and I've said it again, and I'll say it again, and I know I'll keep repeating myself, and I apologise, but the manager stuff at the moment is getting to the point where I'm thinking, just employ a fucking manager. Just employ a manager. And your first thing they do before they even take pictures with the fucking your gear on, get them to sign a centre midfielder. Because we're at the point now where if it's Pereira, if it's Lampard, if it's Dunk, if it's me, if it's me nan, if it's John from down the road, doesn't really matter, does it? If we don't bring in the relevant players that we need to strengthen this squad between now and the end of the season, then we're fucked either way, aren't we, really? So, yeah, there you go. If you are enjoying this one, please hit that like button. By the way, only takes a second if you're new to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe. Let's get into the live comments then. Jimmy says, hi, bud. Hi, Jimmy. Hope you're doing well. Hernandez says, no one can complain about the New Year thing now. Yeah, I've taken the New Year thing off. So, hopefully everyone is now cool and calm with it. Lampard for me, says Jimmy. Fair enough, my mate. Lampard for me over Vítor Pereira, I must admit. And I also think with Frank Lampard as well, is we've all sat here, and Duncan could bring this as well, but we've all sat here and rightly or wrongly, look at the bobble cam, says Daniel. Has he said anything else since before? I know he tweeted about the Lampard stuff. But rightly or wrongly, Evertonians now have gone full Frank Lampard. The stuff about the Vítor Pereira situation is very much a situation that Evertonians don't want to happen. You know, whether that's great or whether that's right or wrong, or whether that's fair for Vítor Pereira or not, that's irrelevant. Evertonians very much at the moment, or most anyway, I think I speak for most, not all, a lot of Evertonians, would rather, there's some Evertonians, that would rather Pereira over Lampard, but we done a poll on our stream yesterday, and I think over 100 people voted, and it was like 87% wanted Lampard over Pereira. Toffee TV done one yesterday with 7,500 votes, which is a massive sample size. 85% wanted Lampard over Pereira, so the good majority of Evertonians would prefer Lampard over Pereira, and what that means automatically is if Lampard does get the job, there's automatically more unity at the club, because A, we'll feel like we've been listened to as fans, but also B, fans have got a manager that they can sort of get behind. If Pereira's employed, yes, everyone will get behind him, and yes, he will be given a fair chance, but there's already that pre-existing worry and stress about, well, we didn't want this fella, and once again, the owner has gone against what we wanted to bring in somebody that, he believes can do a good job, and when he done that last time, it didn't work, and that's why we're in this situation. So, as I said, it's not Vítor Pereira's fault, and that's probably why he wanted to go on Sky, because he wanted to try and sell himself to the Evertonians, but it actually ended up going the other way, and it didn't really work, did it? But ultimately, as I said, whether it's, Vítor Pereira's fault or not, or whether it's right or wrong, most Evertonians sit firmly in the Frank Lampard camp now, and I'm not saying that the owner should make his decision based on what the fans think, but the owner should be aware that the Evertonians are going to take much more to Frank Lampard than they will to Vítor Pereira. And, it's not like we're talking about Frank Lampard or Diego Simeone, and he's thinking, well, Diego Simeone's amazing, look how good of a manager he is. We're talking about one manager who's got no Premier League experience and had the team relegated and hasn't really done much in his career since he was linked with Everton in 2013, and another who, granted, hasn't got much experience or hasn't got much, sort of, hasn't got any experience with a team in a situation like Everton. But, again, like I said, the fans sit with Lampard. Now, Sean says, why wasn't Big Dunk on the poll? Because if I'm being honest with you, mate, 24 hours ago, I didn't think Big Dunk had a chance. As I've just said then, Duncan Ferguson's name has all of a sudden come out of nowhere, and it makes sense because he's at the club and it's Big Dunk, and of course he should be interviewed, of course he should be part of this process, but it doesn't make sense because we literally haven't heard anything about Big Dunk for the last 2 weeks or so. It's been Pereira, Lampard, Rudy Garcia, Kovac, Martinez. We haven't really, the media haven't really been talking about Dunk, which is baffling if he's been in the conversation all this time. Maybe that's just me. Hiya, Cam says, 1 per D. Hi, mate. Damien says, all right, Cam, I think we should be rushing into this. They should give it a Dunk till the end of the season and use the time to find the proper manager. I would, and Saturday's performance and result doesn't change that for me. I would. But who knows? Danbus says, as a Chelsea supporter, I can only say you guys will be lucky to have Frank Lampard. Yeah, and that's fair enough, mate, but he's a Chelsea legend, isn't he? So, in all fairness, I would expect you to say that. I'd love to ask a Derby fan what they think about Frank Lampard. It'd be interesting. I know there was a couple of Derby fans that watched when we talked about Wayne Rooney last week. A couple of Derby fans were in the comments. So if there is any Derby fans in the comments, let us know what you feel about Frank Lampard as a manager, and how he managed that at Derby, considering the budget that he had to spend. Hernandez says, have the club had any response to the protest? Have the club gave any response to the... They haven't gave any response as far as I'm aware, other than announcing Lewis Dobbins' new contract. Dunbas says, this mic's too high, isn't it? It needs to be more down there. What's going on, man? First the Everton, now me mic. Dunbas says he's a fantastic attacking-minded person and manager. He's an attacking-minded person? What does that mean? Surely that's not a good thing if you're an attacking-minded person. Hacken says it might be they are waiting to see which players the manager can bring in. Maybe. Ian says even in Cam, this lot don't know their asses from their elbows. Hope Lewis realises what shit he's letting himself in for. Yeah, you too, they don't. Even in Cam, even in Blues as testicles. Wormy says, how's it going? Little blue bundles of joy. How are you, Wormy, mate? By the way, 190 people watching in here. If we could get the likes up, that'd be amazing. We're only on 59 likes. If you could get them up, that'd be great. Drew says, if it's Lampard, he may get money to spend. If it's Vítor, I don't think cash will be available. Well, that'll be a good excuse for him if we go down, won't it? Up the F and Toffee says, GM1, D Purdy says, hit that like button if you would. Thank you very much. Give it to the big man, says Robbie. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow, mate. I would. And I'm sure we will have an update tomorrow, by the way. I know tomorrow's live stream will either be a welcome insert manager that's joined Everton or a imminent announcement for a specific manager. I expect tomorrow to be a very busy day in the sense of Everton Football Club. Jem says, I'll take Lampard. Looks like Big Dunk is being overlooked. To be honest, he's not confident, so why would you hire him? I think he's more confident than what he lets on, to be honest, I do. Faz says, we will still have shitouts in the dressing room and upstairs. Let's hope whoever comes in can plat sawdust. Interesting, I've never heard that saying before. Happy welcomes team. Cam says, Jem is right, Jem. Jason says, if Frank comes in, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Dunk, because I guess Frank will bring in Jody Morris as number 2. Yeah, it would. I think if Frank was to come in, Dunk would probably move on. But I think the same maybe for Vítor Pereira as well. But then again, you don't know, do you? I suppose that's up to Dunk and up to the new manager if he wants to keep him on board. Greetings, fellow Blues, says Semi. Wormy says, I don't care, Cam. We have no midfield. What's it matter who manages that? That's why we need to bring in players. Happy welcome to the stream, says Semi. Bright says, some know, many have no clue. Just go along. I'm back on Don Franco, says Semi. Hernandez says, he done well with a great team. No big expectations set that season as they couldn't spend. We don't have any players that are near Mount or James in our academy. We tried to get Reece on loan too. Yeah. That's a fair point. Wormy says he couldn't sort out the defence with Rudiger, Christian, Thiago and Zuma and Tomori. Just to appoint Lampard and sign more midfielders. You know what I'd do? I'd appoint Lampard and play him in midfield. If I'm being honest, I would. How many midfielders are we allowed to sign in one window? Need like 10. We need as many as we can. Sign the chat. We're not quality, but we'll play for the badge and give a good fight. Yeah, sign me up as well. We're surprised to see Dunk on the interview list. Yeah, me too. I wasn't surprised, but I was surprised at the same time, if that makes sense. No, don't want Pereira, I want Lampard, says Paul. Kevin Campbell believes there's no plan at Everton. Kev is spot on, and I'm going to message Kev, actually, because I want to get him back on the channel, but he's absolutely spot on. Where are we? Thought they'd given up on Duncan, says John. Testicle says, I dread waking up to the news that Vítor is the manager of our club. Please, no Lampard for me, boys. Interesting. Hernandez says, I would have thought he was given the job and had the public first interview. Sounds like he was trying to rally the fans behind the team already, that he was trying to earn fans trust. Yes, I think that too, and I think that is something that the club, for him to say the things that he said, come across as if he'd been either told to say them or, sort of, I suppose, asked or, advised to say them by somebody within the club. Again, otherwise it's desperate, innit? And I've seen some people saying to me, it's not desperate. Well, it is desperate. If he's come off his own back with nobody from the club or nobody around the club asking him to do that, then it's desperate. Because he's coming out and effectively begging for the job at Sky. If somebody at the club has told him or advised him to do it, then it's not desperate. And if that's the case, then clearly there's people at the club that really want us as fans to accept Pereira. And I think we would accept Pereira as the manager, but that was done so blatantly that we're not stupid. We're not going to sit there and go, oh my God, he's amazing. He's come off his own back and said we were boss when we had Jagielka. That's amazing. We all sat there and went, that sounds scripted. We're not stupid, are we? We're not stupid. Yeah. And Anders says it also pissed me off that he has several times tried to sell the fact he has no agent. We all know it's Kia, and he looks like an idiot trying to hide that. Well, listen, Kia isn't an agent. I don't even think he's got an agent thing at the moment. So he's just the middleman. He's a money maker. That's all he is. He's a money making absolute idiot, and get him as far away from this football club as you fucking can. Stick him on a rocket and send him into space. Get him as far away from Goodison as possible. Can't believe Kovac and Garcia haven't been interviewed, but maybe they were, and they didn't fit the bill or whatever. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they didn't want the job. Maybe they wanted to wait until the summer. Maybe they didn't want to take over a team that were in such a bad situation. I don't know. Maybe the club just didn't look at them because. Yeah. John says Pereira is happy to work with anyone Macheri buys. I doubt Lampard and Duncan feel that way. There you go. And that might be a deciding point, mightn't it? Sean says, nice show, Cam, but this interview stinks. Which interview? The Pereira interview? Or the interview I'm doing with myself now. Damien says Kovac has been interviewed as far as I know. Jem says fair enough, I've got that tea overdose mouth myself. Can't believe Kovac. Oh, we read that one out. Kieran says Lampard would be good for the Merseyside rivalry. He hates Liverpool as much as any toffee. He does. He had a little spat with Jurgen Klopp last time they played as well, which would go down well with Evertonians, I'm sure. The interview stunk of Kia, his style of messing. Yeah, it stunk of go and sell yourself to the fans. Now, if he's got no agent, only a lawyer, I highly doubt a lawyer would be really that bothered about that. And would Vítor Pereira off his own back come out? Has he ever done that for any other club? I don't know. It's certainly very, very, very weird, isn't it? It is. Lampard probably is still better than our midfield, says Wormy. Matt says any loan targets rumoured to replace our non-existent midfield. Well, we've been linked with Dele Alli over the last couple of days, haven't we? And Dombele from Tottenham as well, we were linked with. But yeah, that's about it. There's a Ruben Loftus-Cheek rumour going round, but I don't know how sort of reliable that is, or whether that's just people putting two and two together with the Lampard situation. I don't know. But as good as I think Loftus-Cheek will be, I don't know if there's anything in that. What did I miss, says Semi? Matty says, I wouldn't be surprised if we get another name in the hat tomorrow, like Mourinho. Semi says, had to get a bit more tea. Lampard all day for me. Lampard is shite as a manager, says Don. That was Chris saying Lampard all day for me. Sounds about right, Mike, says Jem. Damien says, if he has to leave, that's it. I think he needs to move on and start getting the experience in managing he needs. I think that's about Dunk. Dunk's a distraction, a courtesy interview, in my opinion. Lamps from me, but if Vítor has Kia or some Bill in his corner, it's up to you, fan base, says Mike. the current players would rather play for Lampard than Pereira. That might be a telling factor as well, but you would have to ask the players, and they'd probably say, where's what they probably wouldn't answer, would they? Because Paul says I would prefer Lampard as he's got Premier League experience and will get more out the youngsters like he did at Chelsea. Damien says I think he needs to move on and start getting experience. Talking about Dunk, I think there. Dunk should have took the Rangers job, says John. Was he offered the Rangers job? John says no matter whom the manager will be, do you expect any more signings? Yes, in the midfield, because we've got no choice. Apparently Jody Morris split from Lampard, says the Epic. I wasn't aware of that. Liam says get Big Dunk till the end of the season. Hernandez says we don't have any emotional connection to Lampard, so he isn't special to us. He knows the league and a bit of Premier experience, which is fine. No luck with him because you won Europe once. He was sacked. Interesting. Don says every Chelsea fan I know can't understand why we've been linked with Lampard. Not one. I lived in Fulham and Chelsea for 10 years. I know plenty. Is that a bad thing? A lot of outsiders don't seem to think Lampard's a good suit for Everton. And as I said, is the sort of the feeling towards Lampard from Evertonians just because we know the other option is Vítor Pereira? Is that the reason why everybody's so sold on Lampard? If it was Lampard and another name that we were sort of not too bothered about, would everybody be so sold on Lampard? I don't know. I know there's genuinely some Evertonians that are sold on Lampard. I'm not particularly. I'd rather him to Vítor Pereira, but I'm not massively sold on him. Max says, I know one Derby fan who doesn't like him due to his management of playoff final, but suppose that's just one game. Yeah, he did spend a lot of money there as well. And again, he really should have been promoted with that side. He really, really should have. But again, one job. He done really well at Chelsea first season. So gave it to Lampard. Duncan's number 2, says Paul. The Knight Strider says, if you could make a realistic signing before the window closes, who would you go for? Who would I go for? I would go for... probably Loftus-Cheek in the midfield. Probably Loftus-Cheek. Is Garner Gay on loan a realistic signing? I really want Garner back, if I'm being honest. I don't care if he's 30 odd. I don't care if he should never go back. I really, really want Garner back. I really do. Jem says, Bright. Machete signings are woeful. Tossing and El Ghastly says where me. Connor says, right, Cam lad, Lampard in. He will attack decent players too, which we're desperate for. Maybe. Jem says, why don't we ever go to the Championship to sign good prospects? We should do. Chris Burns says, Rory Jennings done a video on Frank Lampard and how we got the fans back on side of Chelsea. Worth a watch. Cam, he sold the idea to me. Yeah, he did. Rory obviously is a massive, massive Chelsea fan, and I remember Rory doing a video when Lampard was sacked, basically calling out Abramovich and saying he was a disgrace for sacking him. The thing with this is, and a Chelsea fan in the comments before, and as I said, they're saying no disrespect to Chelsea fans, and I'm sure they, that's coming from a point of sort of genuineness, but Frank Lampard is a legend to Chelsea. You will really find one Chelsea fan who will say, no, he was shite. Even if they deep down believe it. I'm not saying Rory does, but you'll really find one Chelsea fan who goes, nah, he was awful. Because they love him so much and they don't believe he should be sacked. Ultimately, it was the right decision by Chelsea because they sacked him and 6 months later won the Champions League. Would they have won it with Lampard? I don't think they would. But again, I get that it's positive and obviously it goes to him. And as I said, if it's Lampard, I will be less anxious that will go down, but I'm still not absolutely convinced that he'll do a good job because he's never had that experience in doing that. But yeah, would Lampard be able to tempt Dele Alli to us? I think he would. I think it is Cam. Yes, says Jem. Sorry about doing. I've got an ulcer. Really sore, actually. Either Lampard or Kovac or Favre. I prefer Kovac or Favre, says Damien. Paul says, do a poll, Lampard or Pereira. We're going to finish this season now, so there won't be enough time, but we done one yesterday, and it was quite significant for Lampard. James says, my worst nightmare tonight is Jim White announcing on TalkSport tomorrow that the new Everton manager will be announced between 10 and 1. That sounds like you know that's going to happen. Interesting. Chris says, imagine if the Thomas Muller rumour was true and he actually did come to Everton. Oh my God, isn't, but oh my God, imagine he come in as manager. Zakaria would be an amazing signing, says Whammy says, no Cam, we don't want Garner back. Don't let the stupid board make you think nostalgia is going to help you bring a player like Garner. Zakaria it'd be great, a great alternative, but I just love Garner. I think he's boss. Lampard could attack some big names. And then they said if it was the summer with the pre-season, don't think I would give it to Lampard, would want a bigger name. Interesting. Who do you reckon Lampard would get in? Who do you reckon would get in if Lampard is made the manager? I think we'll get a Loftus-Cheek in, if I'm being honest, I do. maybe Dele Alli. But we can only bring one more loan player in as well, so it'll be difficult. Hernandez says Rory did the video yesterday that he feels Lampard's the type of coach that will get a free pass no matter how bad he does because of his prestige in the league. That isn't a good thing, is it? Let's be honest. We don't need anyone that's going to get a free pass. We need somebody who's going to keep us up. But, look, we'll leave it there then. There you go. It seems to be down to 3 names. Frank Lampard, Duncan Ferguson, Vítor Pereira. Out of those 3, let us know who you would like, including Dunk, because Dunk's very much still in the running at the moment. And I know the Aston Villa game might have put a few Blues off, but I'm out of the 3, I'd rather give it to Dunk. I think he knows these players more, he knows the squad more, and I actually think if we get to Goodison and get behind the team, Dunk will get the results that we need to get. And I know tactically there's question marks, but there's question marks tactically over every one of them. And the other 2 don't know the Everton squad. You know, Vítor Pereira only knows Jagielka, Baines, Coleman, and Tim Howard. And Lampard obviously doesn't know any of the players personally. So yeah, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Massive thank you to everybody for watching live. Really do appreciate it. It means a massive amount to me. If you could hit the like button, 90 likes, 190 watching. Could we get to 100 before we finish up? That'd be amazing. If you are watching live, if you're watching a YouTube video, give your thoughts down below and we'll get involved with as many of them as we possibly can. And yeah, we will be back tomorrow. No game on Saturday, obviously, so we'll be back tomorrow with another Everton manager latest and maybe even a manager confirmation video or live stream. I'm sure we'll wait and see on that one. But yeah, no promises because we don't know what's going to happen. Get the likes up, guys. As Hernandez, Burnley turning Chris Wood into Orsic and Weghorst is crazy ambition to stay in the league. Yeah. Wormy says, Bright, if you don't like the government of where you live now. How do we get onto that? Anthony says, I'm beginning to think they're planning for the Championship football next season. Maybe. Big Dunk called Rooney, says Paul. Damien says, nice one, can my mate take care? And out of the 3, I'll give it to Dunk. He bleed to keep us up. Spots on. Heart says Dunk. Head says Lampard. Chris, my heart says Dunk. Head says Pereira, if I'm being honest. In terms of who I think we'll go with. Who I want is head and heart is Dunk. But I've just got this feeling. It'll be Pereira. Paddy says, thank you, Cam. I appreciate it. Cheers, mate. William says, see you guys. Semi says, take care. Thanks, Cam. Take care, everyone. Cheers, mate. Iceland Bright might be great there. Not a shop that sells frozen food, though. Take care, Blues, says Damien. Nil Satterson is the optimum. See you, Blues. Is right. Big thanks, everyone. We've hit 100 likes as well, so thank you all very much. As I said, if you have enjoyed this one, please do hit that thumbs up button. It does only take a second if you're new. Don't forget to subscribe. Big thanks to everybody in the live comments. Really appreciate it. If you watch the YouTube video, get your comments below. We'll be back tomorrow. I expect it to be another manic day, and maybe by this time tomorrow, 24 hours time, we'll have a new manager. Let's wait and see. Massive thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon on the Mighty Blues.